But without any further embellishments or ados, I would like you all to give the biggest of boys' state welcomes to the one, the only, are you guys ready? The senior senator for the state of Oklahoma to the United States Senate, James Lankford. Welcome, sir. Great to see you, too. That band that we've got all week, huh? All right. I know you all know him, but this man is very accomplished. So let me tell you just a little bit about him before I turn the microphone over. He's going to talk, and then he's going to take some Q&A. And, sir, this is a pretty intelligent group this year, so I hope you're ready. It may be a little bit more than some of the minority in the Senate, but I don't know. I don't want to get political here. Senator Lankford serves Oklahomans. He served for 4 years in the U.S. House of Representatives for Central Oklahoma until he was overwhelmingly elected to the U.S. Senate in 2014. Before his service in Congress, Senator Lankford served students and families for more than 20 years in ministry, including 15 years as the Director of Student Ministry for the Baptist Convention of Oklahoma and Director of a camp many of you have probably gone to, Falls Creek, the largest camp in the entire United States with more than 51,000 individuals attending each summer. I wish we could do 51,000 here at Boys State too. Wouldn't that change the Republic? The senator and his staff enjoy serving people from all backgrounds across Oklahoma. He's the chair of the Government Operations and Border Management Subcommittee. I imagine that's probably keeping him a little busy, which covers, as you guessed it, border security, management and operations, regulatory reform, and the federal workforce. He demands that we have a secure, more fiscally responsible and transparent federal government, and our nation remains the world leader. He believes that the federal government has an important role in our nation, but empowered families, individual people, and private businesses are the ones that grow our economy and pass down our values. He was recognized as the Senate's top-ranked taxpayer friend, that's always good, by the National Taxpayers Union for his strong record in support of lower taxes, limited government, and economic freedom. His annual Federal Fumbles Report is a must-read in Washington, D.C. because of its common-sense solutions to the problems our federal government faces. He has also been recognized by many other organizations for his work towards increased personal freedom, economic growth, and religious liberty. The senator lives in Oklahoma City with his wife, Cindy. They have been married more than 30 years and have 2 daughters, Hannah and Jordan, and enjoy spending time with his family, working in the yard, and reading. Ladies and gentlemen, the senior senator from Oklahoma, Senator James Lankford.
Well, man, it's great to get a chance to be able to meet you. I'll spend just a couple of minutes talking about a few things, and I do look forward to just some Q&A time, just to be able to talk about things that may be on your heart and mind as well. Let me give you just a hair more background on this as well. How many of you have been to Falls Creek Camp before? Let's see your hands. It's great. The rest of you that have your hands down, you're a good volunteer for later on this summer to be able to go. Falls Creek's a remarkable place to be able to be as a summer camp. experience, be able to walk with Christ, to be able to get pushed in your faith on that. I was director there, as Corey mentioned, for 15 years. I assumed I was going to do that the rest of my life. Loved doing it. My wife and I have been very engaged in that. Our daughters literally grew up being there during the summers. We assumed we were going to do that forever. But years ago, God interrupted our life in a way that we did not expect and called us to be able to run for Congress. Why do I tell you that story? I have no background in politics. I have no one in my family in politics. I have no history of politics other than I was the nerdy kid that actually read the newspaper growing up. I was in speech and debate and loved to get into arguments and to dig into different issues. But I never ran for student council. In fact, for all of you that are being elected and being confirmed tonight, congratulations for all of you mayors. You have more political experience than I had when I first stepped into office. I never ran for anything before, but I had an overwhelming sense of calling to say, this is what I'm supposed to do. So I resigned my position as the director of Falls Creek. I spent a year living off my life savings running for Congress and was elected into Congress and have represented our great state since then. I tell you that story because I want you to hear loud and clear. Some of you will be in the exact same spot. I do not want you to ever think political leaders come from certain families in certain backgrounds in certain towns. I'm just a guy. There's nothing different about me, except that I had God's calling in my life, and I was willing to take a risk to actually follow him in that calling. I also have a sinus infection, so you're going to get a chance to enjoy that as well. Typically, I'm a soprano, but when I have a sinus infection, I've got this deep of a voice. Sorry about that. Thank you. I'll take some water. You and I can share. Thank you. I'll take it. I want you to know this. It's not a certain family. It's not a certain background. It's not a certain town or place. It's God's calling on your life and your willingness to be able to actually sacrifice, to be able to step up and to take leadership roles. Leadership is always sacrifice. Always, always, always sacrifice. There's a perception in American life that leadership gets put on a pedestal and they're the ones that don't sacrifice. Leadership always sacrifices. And the decision that you're going to have to make on it, if you step in any leadership role in any organization, in any place, is, are you willing to make the sacrifice to be able to serve other people, to be able to lead in the areas where it needs to be done? I understand you've been talking a lot already about the 250th birthday of the United States. It's a big deal. You only turn 250 once, so we might as well celebrate it. But it is late May right now. Late May of 1776, the American colonies, all 13 of them, in Great Britain had already been in a soft war for 13 years already. 13 years. Concord and Lexington, those battles had already occurred. Last year in 1775, King George had already designated the colonies as in full rebellion. But the colonies were still trying to determine what they're going to do. It was just in a couple of days from now, the Second Continental Congress would gather and would make a decision that they're going to actually try to write a declaration and send it to King George and to say we're separating. That was just days from now, actually 250 years ago. But as they gathered, and they got a committee of 5 people together, including a young guy named Thomas Jefferson, who was a redhead, by the way, just don't forget that. So of the 5 of them, they were initially going to get John Adams to actually write, and John Adams said, no, Jefferson's a better writer than I am, and they pushed Jefferson to do the first draft, and he spent about 2 weeks actually drafting this. And then after he drafted it, Adams and especially Benjamin Franklin just shredded what he wrote and narrowed it down, and that committee of 5 then brought the Declaration to the Second Continental Congress, and they had to determine whether this is what they were really going to do, to put their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor on the line to be able to establish a new nation. Because leadership had a cost. The soft war had already been happening for 13 years. They had to determine, are we going to resolve this or not? But to do that was going to cost them a lot, and it did. But they laid the foundation for that. Fast forward through as many generations as you want to come through for 250 years. and you'll see sacrifice after sacrifice after sacrifice. These folks over here can tell you what sacrifice looks like to be able to serve the country, because they've literally taken an oath to be able to stand by their country with their own lives and their own families, to be able to take a stand, to be able to protect the freedoms that we have. Because the freedoms of each generation has to be protected by each generation. It may seem like a flippant comment, but there are those right now in our culture that look back at our founding and they say we should have been founded something totally different. We shouldn't have capitalism. We shouldn't have the freedom. The freedom that we have is too much anarchy. It should be controlled by a small group of people to be able to maintain the order of society, instead of having the freedom of each individual. But we were founded with this most basic of principles, that all people are created equal. There is no difference between you and I. I'm not higher than you because I'm a senior senator. I'm a citizen, just the exact same way you are. And for a season, I'm serving with a title and a role, and at the end of that season, I pass it on to someone else who carries that responsibility. And I step into a different role of being just citizen. It's not higher and lower. And our unique system is we protect the rights of every single individual to be able to live free and equal. We think that's a normal thing. 250 years ago, that was the most radical concept you can possibly imagine. 250 years ago, no one ever thought a nation could function and operate day to day unless every person in that nation had the same religion as the monarch or the dictator. Whoever the leader was, they had to impose their religion on the rest of the country, or they felt like there'd be chaos in the country. We started out in 1789 and said that we're going to protect the rights of every individual to have any faith of their choosing, change their faith, or have no faith, and that would be protected. That was a radical concept in 1789. In 1789, you don't speak ill against the king. We determined that every individual could speak whatever they wanted to be able to say, and to be able to protect the rights of the individuals to speak, because each person is created equal in the sight of God. And the most radical of all concepts, that our rights don't come from government, our rights come from God. And government is instituted to protect those rights that have been given to us by God. That basic principle revolutionized the world, and it built a nation that is the most powerful, most moral, most economically prosperous nation in the history of the world, because it was built on the principle that you and I are equal, and that you have a protected right and so do I. But with those rights came responsibilities. And this is where I want to land just for a short conversation. Men, there's an expectation in our nation that men would live responsibly, that they would lead well, honor well, work with humility, serve others, and do the right thing. That they would be built on a basic foundation of morals and values, because our freedom is dependent on individuals living moral while they live free. Because chaos breaks out when you have freedom and no morality. Those two have to go hand in hand. Without faith and morality, you create chaos in the freedom. The freedom that we enjoy, there are multiple nations around the world that could never do that because they don't have a moral, foundational, ethical basis that we have in our nation. But this nation's freedom is only protected when each generation actually lives those values and morals. If any one generation chooses to be able to walk away from our morals and values, we slip into chaos, just as certainly as night goes to day. So the question is for each of you, not just are you free because you are, it's will you guard the responsibility as well as guard the freedom that each of you are given. I am proudly a dad of 2 daughters. A dad of daughters has a different perspective on boys. We just do. When people ask me at different times, what do you look for? And one of my daughters just got married 3 weeks ago. And they say, what do you hope for your daughters? I will typically smile at them and I'll say, well, I want a man who's not afraid to love God more than they love my daughter, because they're going to learn the source of love if they come to know God, and understand the forgiveness that Jesus gives, they will understand more how to forgive others and how to live in a relationship. So I'm looking for a man who's willing to love God more than he loves my daughter. That's number one. Number two, I'm looking for a man who's not afraid to actually be a man. I find so many young men act like men on their video game, but when they take their headset off, they no longer act like a man or a leader. I want a man or a leader who's willing to be a leader, not just in a game, but in life. That means they're willing to sacrifice for others. That means they're willing to be able to speak out for someone who's being pushed down. That means they're willing to be able to take the lead and lead with humility. That means they're willing to be able to have a value and a responsibility, not because someone's watching, but because deep inside their core, they know the right thing to do and they do it. That's the man that I'm looking for my daughters, because I'm just a dad of daughters. And in this generation, there's a void of men and an abundance of boys. And the challenge that is here in Boys State is to be able to help you, guide you to the edge to say, are you wanting in the days ahead to continue to be a boy or to step out and be a man? Because the man will be the one who'll make the hard decisions and do what's right even when everyone else does what's wrong. The man will be the one to say, when there's someone to sacrifice, I'll do it. The man will be the one to say, when it's time to do the hard thing, I'll take it on. In your family, in your neighborhood, and at your school, we desperately need men that can actually step up and lead well and to not be afraid to be able to do the right thing. One last thing, and then I want to just take some questions. We can talk about anything you want to be able to talk about, because sky's the limit. There's no telling what question's coming, am I right? Yes, sir. And I'm okay with that. For you, you have a lot of decisions to make on it, but let me just lay one thing culturally in front of you as well. For some reason, the generation right before you got obsessed with social media and drifted off down the rabbit hole of social media and all kinds of crazy, weird stuff. And for some reason, there's a whole group of folks that are in the generation just ahead of you that have determined the way to be famous is to do something goofy and dumb on social media, get 100,000 followers, and then to be able to follow up that goofy, dumb thing with another goofy, dumb thing. And at the end of it, you're now 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, and you find yourself doing one goofy, dumb thing after another to get more and more attention, and you find out it's actually a waste of a life. You get to make a decision in the days ahead if you're going to follow the lead of the generation that was right before you. Because there's a group of folks that have squandered away their best years into things that will absolutely mean nothing in the days ahead. Don't think for a moment that you're a generation waiting in the days ahead. Someday you'll do something important. That could be taken on right now. In World War II, we lost 400,000 Americans in World War II. 400,000 Americans fighting for freedom. Do you know what the most common age was on the battlefield in World War II? 19. 19. They saved the world. They saved the world. And the most common age for them was 19. Don't for a moment think 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 6 years from now, I'll take on responsibility. A group of 19-year-olds saved the world in World War II. And you are a generation that has to determine, am I going to spend my days playing video games and being distracted, trying to create the latest new craze on TikTok, or am I going to invest in my community, turn lives around, help my family, redeem what is broken, deepen my faith, and be the man? Or are you at 30 years old still going to just be a tall boy? You get to make the call on that. So if there's any one thing I can bring to you is, you live in the greatest country of the world that has stood here for 250 years and has offered freedom and opportunity. You can seize it or waste it. It is up to you. But you get the option to decide on that. You do. What do you want to talk about? Yes, sir. Yep. Go ahead.
Remember, gentlemen, like last night when we had our minority speaker here, respectful, raise your hand when the senator identifies you. We'll get you a microphone. Identify yourself by name and where you're from, please.
Yeah, I saw one hand right here, if you can, right there.
My name is Benjamin Stevens. I'm from Norman, Oklahoma. A common concern, at least among myself, and I believe a lot of my peers, is senators and representatives will do insider stock trading, and I was wondering what your position on that was.
Yeah, so United States Senators, members of Congress should not do stock trading. Neither should our staff, by the way. I don't trade in stocks. That's just been a set issue for me. I had a few, like we're talking like a couple, and I've just sold them off. So it's just, that's not a distraction for me on that at all. Here's the challenge that we have. I'm a former youth pastor. I don't know if you know a lot of youth pastors. We don't come with a lot of wealth. So it wasn't an issue for me. There are folks that are there that own big companies and had millions of dollars in stocks that are already sitting there. I think the easiest way to be able to do that is say if you own stocks when you came in, you should own the same stocks when you leave. Either sell them before you get in, but there's no trading while you're actually there on it. Interestingly enough, our staff actually knows more about the day-to-day operations of a lot of these companies than any of us do on it. So I don't have any issue with blocking off no trading for members of Congress. I think it's a good thing to be able to do. We just changed the rules of the United States Senate just a couple of weeks ago where no member of the Senate can actually be on Kalshi or on Polymarket. It just blocked it entirely. You can't even have a membership, can't be there at all. By the way, I wasn't on it before because it's just gambling is all it is. That's a whole different issue. But you can't have insider information, can't do that. And so we're blocked entirely from that. So there's some good boundaries that are already up on that. But it's not a bad question on it. Let me take some from some different cities that are here.
You pointed out, sir.
Well, we got to take the mayor. You got to do that. So, yeah.
Wait, so I don't know if you want to do that one.
I'm open. Wow, you got a reputation already.
Hello, I'm Biscuit. I'm from Jones, Oklahoma. Are you saying people in the Senate can't gamble?
People in the Senate can gamble if they went to casinos or something like that, but not with Polymarket or Kalshi.
So
By the way, I don't gamble. I think it's a terrible idea.
You
It's a
can't
waste of
cook
money
up
and
a
time.
parlay?
No.
Oh, that's sad.
All right, let me take a different city over here. Help me point out different cities here.
They're segmented.
All right, all the cities all combined? All right, there you go.
Hello, Senator. My name is Reagan Graw. I'm from Edmond, Oklahoma, and I want to hear your opinions on congressional term limits.
Yeah, I think congressional term limits are a great idea. You got to be careful not to have them so short that it really empowers the executive branch. So, for instance, there's one of the proposals out right now that says in the House of Representatives could only be there 6 years, 3 terms. That may sound good, but that means your Speaker of the House has maybe only been there 2 years or 3 years before they're Speaker of the House and trying to lead a body, and then they're on their way out the door at the beginning. What that really does is that empowers the executive branch with a lot more power, because then the legislative branch is cut short in that time period. Your rise to leadership is too fast. We deal with a budget that's over $5 trillion. It's a little complicated. It takes a little bit of time to be able to learn your way through it. So I strongly support term limits, but I want to make sure they're long enough that it doesn't give an unequal balance to the executive branch. Our founders created this very careful system to be able to make sure executive branch, legislative branch, and judicial branch all had checks and balances against each other because, quite frankly, we're not angels. And so it's good to be able to have people check each other to be able to make sure you hold each other to account. If the executive branch gets too much power, then the executive branch will run over all the other branches and you lose what the founders uniquely designed, this ability to have checks and balances. So yes, I think we need to have term limits, but they need to be long enough that you can actually keep a balance between the two. It's a good question, Ray. Go ahead.
Hello, Senator. My name is Maverick Simmons, and I go to Bethany. If you can't tell, my voice is a little messed up too, but I was just wondering, since we're trying to run a city here, or really a state, what would be some advice that you could give us just as leaders in our community and around us?
So a couple of quick things I would say is know your faith and your foundations. If you don't have a foundation of value that you live by, then you'll just adjust to whoever's standing in front of you. Then you're not a leader. you're just Jell-O. And we don't need Jell-O. We need leaders that know their foundation, what they're saying on that foundation, stable. I mentioned before, my faith is my foundation. That's the place I can go back to, and I know that's stable. That's been well tested over millennia. I know that's real and that's true. And so be grounded in something that you know is stable and strong. Also get a heart to serve people. Leadership often draws you in to say, have more people serve you and you'll feel important. Leadership is really the opposite of that. The more you serve others, the more joyous you'll be and the more effective you'll be as a leader. If you try to draw people to serve you all the time, you'll end up being miserable, they'll be miserable. So leadership is actually the opposite of what the world portrays. Serve people, and let me give you a practical example of this. If you're walking by a piece of trash and you assume that's somebody else's job, you're looking for servants. If you find something and say, I could fix that, then you're making a difference. Leadership's pretty simple. Leadership says this: I saw a problem and I started fixing it. Non-leaders see the problem and walk past it. Leaders see the problem and start to be able to fix it and make it better. So my challenge is have a foundation and be a leader. When you see the problem, start working to fix it and make it better.
Senator Lankford, I just want to say thank you for coming out here before I ask my question. But other than the Bible, sorry, my name is Josiah Rawson. I'm from Bristow, Oklahoma. And I just want to ask, other than the Bible, what is a book that made you successful, not as senator, but as a man?
It's an interesting question. Probably several things there. I'm trying to think through several different books that are there. As a leader, there's an older book called Good to Great that is actually a challenge towards actually challenging leadership principles and trying to be able to figure out how to do that. It's an older book that was very influential to me early on, but it's called Good to Great. There's a book by Jerry Bridges that deals with faith issues that was very impactful for me early on. Just in my own personal life, it's an older book now. It's called The Pursuit of Holiness. It was a challenge just to be able to go back and to try to reevaluate foundational issues in my life. There's a book called The Wild Goose Chase. It is literally about pursuing God and trying to be able to determine what your purpose is. Many of you are probably in a very similar spot to be able to determine, okay, I know how old I am, I know my name, and I know my town, but I don't know where I'm going. That pursuit of God is a lifelong pursuit, and learning how to be able to do that, to be able to say, what am I here for? Why am I here? It's not to be served, it's to serve. But where is that and what is that to do? That book really helped bring some clarity to mind. It's called The Wild Goose Chase. Yeah. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm James Graham from Edmond, Oklahoma. I was wondering your thoughts and or solutions on the nationwide problem like gerrymandering in states like Texas and Illinois and Virginia.
Yeah, gerrymandering has been around literally since the foundation. The way it's set up for congressional districts is that states get to decide the boundaries of their congressional districts. We settled this a long time ago in Oklahoma, that our districts are as close as we can to county lines to be able to make it very clean. But we have 5 districts in our state. Every single district has to have the exact same number of people. So to do that, you've got to carve some streets to be able to do that. If you're going to have the exact same number in all 5, then you can't just do it clean county lines. So we try to do it as clean as we can in Oklahoma, and then to be able to help bring some clarity on that. When you get into what's happening right now, Texas, Virginia, Florida, so many others on it, it starts an arms race to try to figure out how you can actually carve districts out. That state will ultimately make the decisions on that, though. That is state leaders that make those decisions. We, the people, elect those state leaders. Those state leaders then actually help set the boundaries for both the congressional boundaries and the rest of the boundaries on that. So if we don't like that as individuals, we elect different state leaders who make the changes on that. And we've seen that around the country. So that's still something we choose. By the way, this whole we the people thing, it's still real. It's still we the people actually making all these decisions on it. Yes?
Hello, I'm Thomas Vaughn. I'm from Edmond, Oklahoma. I've actually met you a few times. Really cool guy.
Thanks.
My question is, from your times at Falls Creek, all your time spending at leadership, how would you feel you've used that as your transition into Senate and what you've pulled from Falls Creek to make you a better person in Senate?
That's a great question. As funny as it is, I've joked with people before that working with juveniles for years prepared me to go to Congress pretty well because it's not always grown-up conversation there. But for me, when I work with families, and I served with families for 22 years before I went to Congress, when you work with families, you hear all kinds of issues and challenges, and your focus is, what can I do to be able to help? Now, I still have that lens. I'm still a minister at heart. I still love people. I still love God. I still want to be able to serve and to be able to help. So that does affect some of the things I take on. That affects how I see challenges that are out there just in real life and thinking, does this make things better or not? I ask the if-then question a lot because I learned this a lot in youth ministry. If we do this, then what happens? So instead of just doing what feels good at that time, I have to ask the if-then question. If we vote on that, if we pass that, if that becomes law, then what happens in culture, in society? Where do things go from there? And so that pushes me to think about things differently. I'll just give you a practical example, if that's okay. I'm not an advocate of legalized marijuana. I know some people are. I'm not. And for me, that comes out of my youth ministry background. That's where that comes. In 20 plus years of counseling students and working with families, I never counseled a single family in 2 decades that I thought, you know what would help this family? If only the parents smoked more marijuana, this family would be so much better. Okay, I never met that family. I never got into a counseling situation like that, but that's a policy now that we're having to deal with. And I have people had different sizes, different opinions on that. I get that. But for me, my own background in youth ministry affects how I see what's happening in culture now on that specific policy. Does that make sense? All of us come with that. Whoever's elected, you have a background. You were a CPA, you owned a business, you were a youth pastor like me, you were a lawyer, there was a lot of lawyers there. Okay, so, everybody has a background that they did before they got into Congress, and everybody has a lens that they look through because of that. I just admit mine, some people don't, but I do admit I have natural biases on this, and this is where I come from on the perspective. So, I've lost you. Where's my microphone?
Right here, sir.
Go for it.
Good evening, sir. My name is Dashiell Benavidez. I'm from El Reno, Oklahoma. I would ask that you please excuse my voice. Me and my city have been quite busy today, being the loudest city here, so I'm sorry about that.
You're fine. Mine's just as rough tonight. I'm having a sinus infection.
My question is, as a U.S. Senator, what has been the hardest decision that you've made and that's put you under a lot of stress? And also, what is your opinion on ice cream?
My ice cream opinion's pretty clear on this. I am actually tied between Bluebell and Brahms, just as a person. And I would tell you, the reason that most of D.C. is in a bad mood most of the time is because there is no Brahms in D.C. So that's what I would say on that. Yeah. That's also one of the big struggles for a lot of my staff is that any of my staff that actually work for me, and I've got about 20 staff that are there in D.C., I tell them before they come on staff, hey, you need to know before you move to D.C., there is no Brahms in D.C., and so you got to be willing to make a sacrifice to be able to come here. As far as the hardest decisions and things to do, let me give you one example. 2 years ago, Corey kind of mentioned this before in some of the border work. 2 years ago, and this is going to sound partisan, it just is. President Biden's border policy was allowing over 10,000 people a day to illegally cross the border. A day. The border was just in abject chaos, and we couldn't get him to stop. We tried all kinds of different pressure points, couldn't get him to stop on this. So I was asked by my conference, by the Republican conference in the Senate, to negotiate with the Democrat senator and with the White House and see if we couldn't come up with some proposal to be able to make the immigration stop. Just a flood that was coming across the border. So I worked for 4 months behind the scenes to be able to actually negotiate a deal. The deal was very solid, But then when it came out and we were 48 hours from the vote, social media started attacking it with things that were false. For instance, there was a rumor that was out there that the bill would allow 5,000 people a day to illegally cross the border every single day. Completely not true. But that was the rumor that was out there. Most of my conference strongly supported what I had brought. They were like, yep, that's a great deal to be able to do. We had enough Democrats, had enough Republicans to be able to move it. We were finally going to close down the border on this. In 48 hours, social media rumors went crazy, and almost every one of my colleagues walked away from me. And I went from the guy that was actually solving the immigration issue to the pariah that no one wanted to stand next to in the hallway, because it's like, that's the guy that sold us out, when they all quietly knew that's not true. Because social media was putting out false information, trying to knock the whole thing down and trying to repeat the lie. It was one of the hardest weeks that I had in service to say I was asked to come solve a problem in a time period when solving the problem was the wrong thing to do, because perpetuating the problem was better politics. The challenge we have as a country is finding out, when do you solve a problem and are we willing to fix it? Because sometimes the politics are better to keep the problem going than it is to actually solve the problem on it. So yeah, there are difficult moments, but that's a moment I had to stand out there on the floor of the Senate and to say, here's what the proposal actually is. Here's what the truth actually is. And if people want to stand to be able to solve this, stand with me. After the vote went down, I had this slow trickle that eventually became a flood of members coming back to me apologizing and saying, we should have moved on that. We should have stood with you instead of walking away from you, because that was the moment that came and went to solve the problem. We got to solve this long term at some point. And so, yeah, any leadership, any leader will face tough moments, and you've got to decide at that moment what you're going to do about it. Go ahead.
Good evening, U.S. Senator Lankford. My name is Owen Wiley. I'm from Norman, Oklahoma. I recently saw you a couple weeks ago at Josh Buller's retirement ceremony. Yep. But I was going to ask you, you've pushed for reducing government spending, which I would agree with, yep. But what federal programs do you think should be actually cut? Which programs do you think should be limited? And which programs do you think should be protected? And how do you decide these factors?
Yeah, so let me count the ways in this. We have a $5 trillion budget. It would take us a while to be able to walk through all of that. But you start with the most basic of things. You ask the question, can the country function without this? There will be a moment when we will have to make hard decisions. And the hard part about government is, and especially in Congress, Congress doesn't make hard decisions until they have to. And when they have to, we will make it. But you've got to get to that moment that you have to. The problem with financial issues are, you have to be in a crisis moment before you actually get to the have to moment. That's a bad spot to be able to be in. So what my team does is we put together, as Corey mentioned before, we put together what we call federal fumbles. It's a list of wasteful programs and regulations that are out there that we're trying to develop the list that when we get to that crisis moment, we're not going to turn around and look at each other and go, what do we do? We're going to already have a list ready. And to say, this is a set of issues that we can move on, that we can actually solve. So yes, we try to be able to do those basic foundational things. National security is something our nation is required to be able to do. We've got to be able to do that. That's constitutionally essential for us to be able to do. Some basic infrastructure thing, constitutionally essential for us to be able to do. Those things you separate off and say, let's be wise in how we do that. Things that are decorative, we say, why are we spending money on that when we don't have the money? We literally have to borrow money from China to be able to do this. We've got to be able to stop doing those things step after step. But that requires both parties having grown-up conversations on hard issues. We will eventually have it. Go ahead.
Good evening, Senator. Sorry, my voice is gone. But I'm Ethan McCarley. I'm from Blanchard, Oklahoma. And my question is, a lot of these red shirts here have a leadership philosophy, and I was wondering if you had one, and what would that be, and how do you stand by it?
Yeah. So some of it I've tried to articulate. By the way, these red shirts that are around here, a lot of these are folks that have given away not just this week of their life, but years of their life to be able to serve you. I hope you have the opportunity to be able to say thank you to them at different points, just in private and in public, because of what they have personally sacrificed to be able to invest in you. My leadership principle is pretty simple. I was trying to articulate some of it earlier. Leaders see a problem and do something about it. People that are pretenders see a problem and walk away. So for me, it begins in that most simple principle. That's actually a biblical principle, if you want to go back to that as well. The book of Nehemiah opens with this guy Nehemiah and his brother Hanani there. And it's a long background story on this. But Nehemiah turns to his brother Hanani, who'd just gotten back from Jerusalem, who had just been destroyed. And Nehemiah looks at his brother and says, "What's it like in Jerusalem?" And Hanani says, "Oh, it's terrible. The walls are down, the gates have been burned with fire, the economy's collapsed, it's awful." And he walks away. Nehemiah drops to his knees and says, "God, what should I do about that?" To me, that's the beginning point of a leader. Hanani says stinks to be them. Nehemiah says, "God, what do I do about that?" So my encouragement, the first thing with a leader is to not make leadership so hard. Leadership starts with seeing a problem, texting or calling a friend and saying, "Can you help me work on this and we can solve this together?" When that occurs, you are a leader. You're helping solve a problem. Now make sure you're not making a problem worse, but you're helping solve a problem at that point because you saw it and started doing something about it at that point. So don't make leadership harder than it is. Start with see the problem, start to be able to solve the problem. The other issue for me is pretty simple, and this is just, again, personal for me. I think one of the most essential decisions you'll ever make in your life is not where do you lead, but who do you follow. Every leader also follows somebody. I made the decision years ago, if God made the world, he's smarter than I am. I should follow his leadership. Everybody gets to pick who they follow. Leaders also have somebody they follow. So when you pick who you're going to follow, if it's a musician, if it's an athlete, if it's a TikTok influencer, or if it's the God who made the universe, all of us get to pick. But when you choose who you're going to follow, it will also establish what kind of leader you will be in the future. Make sense? Yeah.
Senator, I was told we have time for one more question, so I'm actually going to take this question on behalf of all of the gentlemen and ladies on the right-hand side of the room here. So there is a bill that's been being fought for many years. There's currently 80 some odd co-sponsors. Oklahoma is a very military-friendly state, but neither one of our Oklahoma senators have co-sponsored, or neither one of our U.S. senators are one of those 80 that have co-sponsored it. What is your stance and why have you not co-sponsored the Major Richard Starr Act?
Yeah. So a couple reasons on that. I'd love to have an ongoing conversation about this. We've got to figure out how to be able to make it work where it actually functions long term. This has been our biggest challenge on this. It would also be, everybody piles on Roger Wicker. Roger Wicker is the most pro-veteran, pro-military member of the entire United States Senate. He is the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, and he gets pounded on saying, "You blocked this bill. Why don't you support the military?" He does. Myself, others, very, very pro-military on it. We got to figure out how to make the math work. What I find is people who have served their nation are the most pro of saying, I want to make sure that it works not only for my generation that they protected, but for the next generation as well. So the issue is not the Richard Starr Act, it's the math and how to be able to make everything work on it as we go through the whole process on this. So I'm one of those folks that's working behind the scenes to be ed to actually make it work on that. I'm grateful, but there's a reason it comes up every year and it gets knocked down every year on this. As silly as this sounds, there's a bunch of bills that are like that. They seem to come up and go down, but it's getting everybody at the table and saying, how do we actually fix this? What does it take to actually get it accomplished? I want to make sure that we're solving the problem on it. That's where I am on it, but glad to be able to have a private conversation with anybody to be able to talk about it and to be able to figure out where we can take it from here. But you're right. That bill comes up year after year after year, has lots of co-sponsors, and in private, a whole group of those co-sponsors will work behind the scenes to make sure it doesn't actually pass because they publicly want to say they're for it, and they privately work behind the scenes to kill it. that doesn't help us. We got to have a group of folks that actually get in the room and to say, how do we solve this and actually get it passed for real? Does that make sense? Yeah, so glad to be able to do that. By the way, I mentioned everybody before, thank you. Because the sacrifice is well noted and everybody sees it and knows it. And thanks for setting the example for the nation that you have set and continue to be able to set for our state. Y'all, let me make just one last comment, then we're gonna take off from here. I'm gonna hang around because I'm gonna get to be a part of like public swearing of the new governor and lieutenant governor, okay? It's not what you thought I meant. So I'm gonna get a chance to be able to hang around and be a part of that ceremony. Congratulations, all of you that have been elected, and for all of you that have gone through this process to be able to take the risk. By the way, it is a risk to be able to put yourself out there. Most folks are not willing to take the risk. For even folks that did not win, thank you for stepping out and taking the risk, because you'll learn a lot from the risk. As all of these folks that will right over here will tell you, well, there's a lot of life to be able to learn, and when you got second and third, to be able to learn how to be able to keep going from there and what the next step is on this. So thanks for stepping out and taking the risk. For those of you that are still making decisions on things you're going to do the rest of the week, this is a good week to be able to experiment with leadership, take the risk, and to figure out who you want to be, because our state needs godly men who will actually be men, not just tall boys. We need leaders that are willing to serve, willing to do the right thing, and willing to set the example, because we're drifting as a nation, and we'll continue to drift until individuals step up and to say, my time to lead, and to be able to set a different example. So God bless you. It's been a joy to be able to be with this evening.
You did turn it off. You've been trying to do that to me all week. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Senator, so much. That is fantastic. We know you are so busy. You spent time with us here. You've got the whole state to cover. This is a huge honor. And the fact that he's going to stay here and swear in you guys, is wonderful. Wonderful. All right. This is the big night, everybody. I want to give you a friendly reminder. We are unequivocally here to celebrate those of you who were victorious. You did a great job. You won your race. You are the champions. But remember, for everybody that comes up here, someone lost. And that also is a learning lesson here at Boys State. Not only how you deal with loss personally, but also how you as the citizens rally around those people. This could be huge, and it's going to be a pivotal part of the week, I promise you, because it is every day. So think about that. But while you do, let's celebrate the victor, shall we, sir? All right. We are going to start with the office of Lieutenant Governor. When your name is called, would you please come forward to the stage? Gentlemen, the 2026 Oklahoma American Legion Boys State Lieutenant Governor, the Honorable Josiah Dean. He's coming from the balcony, sir. Jump down. Oh, gosh. Yeah, we've got good insurance. I don't know if it's that good. Let's not test it. Congratulations, Mr. Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you, sir.
All right. The Honorable Lankford will conduct the oath of office, sir. Over to you.
You going to repeat back on all this?
Yes, sir.
All right, you ready? How's your memory?
Pretty good, sir.
Well, let's test it out. I state your name.
I, Josiah Dean,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support, obey, and support the United
And defend? There you go. Yeah, there you go. The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the State of Oklahoma.
The Constitution of the State of Oklahoma.
And the Delegate Manual of Oklahoma Boys State.
And the Delegate Manual of Oklahoma Boys State.
And that I will not knowingly receive.
And that I will not knowingly receive.
Directly or indirectly.
Directly or indirectly.
Any money or other valuable thing.
Any money or any valuable thing.
For the performance or non-performance.
For the performance or non-performance.
Or any act or duty pertaining to my office.
Or any act or duty pertaining to my office.
Other than the compensation allowed by law.
Other than compensation
compensation allowed by law.
Allowed by law.
Which is none.
Which is none.
Yeah, okay. I further swear.
I further swear.
That I will faithfully discharge my duties.
That I will faithfully discharge my duties.
As Lieutenant Governor.
As Lieutenant Governor.
To the best of my ability.
To the best of my ability.
So help me God, or Buzzy Dragus.
So help me God. And what'd you say, Buzzy Dragus?
Buzzy Dragus, yeah.
Buzzy Dragus.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations. Thank you so much. You could have a seat right over here.
All right, gentlemen, the office of governor. We ready? The 2026 Oklahoma American Legion Boys State Governor is none only than the candidate from Roane City, Nicholas LaPad.
I'm going to let you cheat sheet a little bit too.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I'm getting the benefit to the governor. I state your name.
I, Nicholas LaPat,
Do solemnly swear.
do solemnly swear
That I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support, defend, and obey the Constitution of the United States,
The Constitution of the State of Oklahoma.
the Constitution of the State of Oklahoma,
And the Delegate Manual of Oklahoma Boys State.
and the Delegate Manual of Oklahoma Boys State,
And that I will not knowingly receive.
and that I will not knowingly receive,
Directly or indirectly.
directly or indirectly,
Any money or other valuable thing.
or any money or any other valuable thing
For the performance or non-performance.
for the performance or non-performance
Of any act or duty pertaining to my office.
of any act or duty pertaining to my office,
Other than the compensation allowed by law.
other than compensation allowed by law,
Which is none.
which is none.
I further swear.
I further swear
That I will faithfully discharge my duties as the governor.
I will faithfully discharge my duties as the governor
Of Boys State.
of Boys State
To the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God and Buzzy Dragus.
So help me God and Buzzy Dwagus.
Congratulations, Governor. Yes, take your seat. All right, we've got one more. All right, gentlemen, we're going to do this next part a little bit different, so pay attention. I'm going to announce the rest of the state office holders. When your name is announced, as you're cheering, I would like you to come down and stand in front of the stage. The first person stands in the middle, then right after, so we're nice and centered. When all of those are up here, we're going to ask the rest of you to stand because nobody's been sworn in yet. So, Senator, if you're up for it, we're going to swear in the whole rest of the state for all of their offices all at once.
Got it.
All right. Gentlemen, for Attorney General, Hai Huang. Your next state treasurer, James Graham. Your Boys State Auditor and Inspector, Samuel Schmidt. Your next Superintendent of Public Instruction, Elijah Spradlin. the Commissioner of Insurance, Maximus Barnett. Your first Corporation Commissioner, Ike Harry. Nope, he's coming from above. While he's on the way down, your second Corporation Commissioner, Dawson Hazard. Your next Corporation Commissioner, Tyler Cohen. And last but certainly not least, your Commissioner of Labor was a tie. Right? Not only was it a tie, but believe it or not, 50 Boys Staters did not vote. If you don't think a single vote can make a difference, boy, it could have tonight. So, please welcome to the stage the Honorable Judge Fry to tell us how we're going to fix this little mess.
We follow the Oklahoma statutes for election ties. So pursuant to Title 26, Section 8-105, the Secretary of the Boys State Election Board hereby gives notice that Kevin Perez Mercado from Quinn City and Mitchell Pace from Gott City have a tie after canvassing the votes. If both of them will come to the stage. What happens when we have a tie, according to the statute, we use equal sizes of pieces of paper. Their names are written as closely as possible on the paper as the same size. They are folded as uniformly as possible. They are placed into a clear container, and then a drawing is held, and the person who wins the drawing wins the election. Will you write their names on the paper?
Let's go, Kevin!
Kevin, will you two turn around and watch this? All right, see both of your names are written?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, we're going to fold them twice. Will you apply the lid and shake them?
I will do that. One is part of my week. All right. Are you going to be the chooser?
I guess I'm the chooser.
All right.
This is scary, guys. This is
scary. Are we ready?
Mr. Director?
Oh, it's me again. All right, gents. The 2026 Oklahoma American Legion Boys State Commissioner of Labor is Mitchell Pace. Congratulations. All right, very interesting, teachable moment there for all of us. Congratulations to all of our state office winners. Give them a hand. All right, delegates of 2026 Boys State, please rise. When the senator administers the oath, let's do this maturely and show them that we can be men. When he says, please state your name, Don't say state your name, state your name. And when he says state your office, state the office that you were in, whether it's sheriff, police chief, mayor, city councilman, legislator, House representative, Senate, all that good stuff. We got it? Sir, over to you.
Thank you. Would you raise your right hand? Repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear. That I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the State of Oklahoma. And the Delegate Manual of Oklahoma Boys State. And that I will not knowingly receive. Directly or indirectly. Any money or other valuable thing. For the performance or non-performance. Of any act or duty pertaining to my office. Other than the compensation allowed by law. Which is none. I further swear. That I will faithfully discharge my duties. As state your Boys State office. To the best of my ability. So help me God or Buzzy Dwagus.
On? Oh, there we go. Senator, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for all the leadership remarks, the candid answers to the questions, and especially for participating in our swearing in. We've got a little motto here. We're trying to teach the next generation, trying to preserve the republic. So we've got a coin here with our unofficial motto. What unites us is greater than what divides us. And the Boys State coin we'd like to give you.
Thank you very much.
We would also like to make you an honorary staff member. This isn't a bribe, but as a staff member, you kind of get to come back next year too. Hint, hint. The staff heard that too. So the staff pin for Oklahoma Boys State. And we love swag here at Boys State. So this bag is full of all sorts of Boys State accoutrement for you to use as you see fit. And we thank you so much for being out here today, sir.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. All right, let's give him a hand. What did we think? A U.S. Senator at Boys State.